Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became dazzling white. And suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with them. Then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, we'll make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And while he was speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them. And from the cloud a voice said, This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and they were overcome with fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Get up, do not be afraid. And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, Tell no one about this vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
This afternoon, I will travel over to Pennsylvania to watch my grandson play basketball. He's a proud Palmer Panther. And they're playing whoever it is from Wingate. When he takes the court, I can't help but wonder and marvel at the gear this kid's got. I mean, my daughter and son-in-law write big checks so their kids can play sports. And it covers not only the gym time, but they've got the reversible practice jersey, the warm-up jacket, the game jersey in 2 colors with matching shorts and socks. The kids can express their own tastes in the sneakers that they buy. But everything else is uniform. When I was a kid, and I know that was a long, long time ago. when I played baseball as a kid, our uniform consisted of a hat. There was no jersey, there were no pants, there was nothing. You got a hat. In my case, it was a mustard yellow hat that had an E.T. on the front that stood for East Texas, which was a little village in Pennsylvania in which I lived. Frankly, I was at times embarrassed to wear that uniform. All the other kids just had hats too, but this was a particularly ugly color with just E.T. No fancy logo, no panther head, no, none of that. Just E.T. on a yellow hat. One fateful day, while I was playing baseball, an unusual sequence of events and injuries brought me face to face with a second-string pitcher on a field that boasted the shortest center field in the league. I managed on that day to hit that ball over the center field fence. It scored the winning run of the game, and it forced us into a tie for first place. I will never forget how that one hit changed the way that I thought about myself, and how it shaped the way that I felt even about those dumb-looking hats. Every one of us on that ragtag little team became proud as we lived in the afterglow of that big game. That game, that hit, was an inspiration. Our spirits feed on memories like that. Those events serve as kind of a measuring rod used to compare all these subsequent games that we would play. When the conversation would turn to baseball, I would readily chime in saying, "I'll never forget the day when." And I remember it even into my 70th year, when I was proud to wear that ugly-looking cap. We wore our caps emblazoned with the E.T. like it was some kind of a badge of honor. You know, at the time of our baptism, a cross is emblazoned on our forehead. You have been sealed by the Holy Spirit and marked with the cross of Christ forever, we say. This cross tells us and it tells the world that we are special. We belong to Jesus and his family. But folks, the cross, just like my mustard yellow baseball cap, is not thought to be an attractive symbol by the rest of the world. When you head off to work tomorrow, or maybe Tuesday because tomorrow's a holiday, or you head on back to school, you will confront a very different set of values than the ones that we embrace here. The cross of Jesus, the suffering and the sacrifice that that cross demands, is a most unpopular theme in our culture today. It is only an inspired victory that gives us pride in our baptismal cross. In our lives, it is the resurrection that is the ultimate demonstration of Jesus' divinity and love and power. Jesus playing hardball with the religious and the political leaders of his day. Jesus going toe-to-toe, staring down the power of the mighty Roman Empire that could not keep his lifeless body, the lifeless body of an executed carpenter, in his grave. So dramatic and so powerful are these events that they dominate our thinking and our behavior as Christians. When doubt or fear fills our hearts, when we begin to question the validity of God's promise, we have only to recall the day of resurrection, and there we will find salvation. There we will find a way that our life will be transformed. There will be a power, a transformative power that might just unsettle even a district attorney. Matthew describes a taste of the victorious as it pertains to Jesus in the Transfiguration. He tells us the story in some detail. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became dazzling white. A bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." And when the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and they were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." On that mountain of transfiguration, Peter, James, and John experienced something that would shape their thinking, illuminate their life, and mold their behavior for years to come. The event was an inspiration. And Jesus directed his disciples to get up, to have no fear, and to go back down that mountain. They were headed back into a troubled world of commerce and trade and laws, a world of greed and peer pressure, a place of compromise, confusion, and chaos. Being a Christian is not the same thing as being a volunteer. Being a Christian is far from front parlor niceties or Sunday school pleasantries. Being a disciple of Jesus is not living on a mountaintop, but it's lived out in the plains and the valleys of everyday life. For years, following the Transfiguration, I imagine that the disciples would sit in their neighbors' homes and say, "I'll never forget the day when Jesus rose victorious, when Jesus revealed his divine nature on Mount Tabor, when Jesus claimed us and marked us with a cross on our heads, when Jesus hit the biggest home run ever." We live in the afterglow of Christ's glory. And we are proud to bear the cross and to be the thankful church because his victory has placed us